Hey everyone, welcome back to another video. Today I thought I'd try something very different. This is something that is never been attempted before on this particular channel, but I thought I'd actually give it a go, and depending on how things actually turn out, then I might continue doing this again for the future. But the essential idea behind this kind of video is I'm going to be doing a deck profile via Dueling Nexus, which is the online simulator for this particular way of playing, It's just something that I've been using ever since yugioh Pro was shut down and we had to switch into Edo Pro, but I never actually got into downloading Edo Pro, but I figure Dueling Nexus works just as well, so it's fine there. Now what I'm actually trying to do here is with Dueling Nexus, I'm pretty much just testing out decks that I have yet to actually build in real life, or I've yet to actually attempt gathering the cards for the deck. And basically what I do is I test out whatever decks I might be curious about, and depending on whether or not it actually turns out to go well or not, it will dictate whether or not the deck is worth building. So Ursarctic has been one of those new top decks that has actually been quite popular. I figured that the Ogdoadics might be a little bit more popular, but it seems like a lot of people have actually been turning their eye towards the Ursarctic, which is definitely very interesting, of course, because they do have their own unique niche. They have their similar way of summoning to Dark Synchros, which is exclusive to the anime, of course, or at least this version here would be the closest we would get to that. And because of that, I think it does draw quite a bit of attention from a lot of different players out there who are thinking about the nostalgic aspects of Yu-Gi-Oh! 5Ds. Now, I've never bought any Ancient Guardian packs, I've never opened up any Ancient Guardian packs, and I do not own any Ancient Guardian cards whatsoever. But I figured I might as well just test out the Ursarctic archetype because it does actually draw a bit of attention to me. Now, I'm not going to be doing this like all the time. For example, there is Blazing Vortex, right? I've already looked very negatively towards that particular set, and archetypes like the S-Force, the Warrock, the Meteor Raider, they're very just not interesting to me. I mean, I just don't have any kind of leaning towards their particular playstyle. So because of that, even without testing them, just by reading their card effects and trying to get a basic idea on how they might turn out, I just don't have any interest whatsoever, so I'm not even going to bother testing them out. However, with Ancient Guardians, I am actually curious about all three of the archetypes introduced in there, and I would actually like to test things out. Now in the past, I have actually done deck profiles. Well, I've done one deck profile for the Ogdoadic deck that Liam actually focused on, so I'll just show a screenshot, but you guys could always just go check it out. It's definitely a very interesting deck, but I've yet to test it out myself. But with that being said, today we'll be focusing on the Ursarctic. I think this deck is the most unique out of the three decks out there, so I figure I might as well test this. Show you guys a few gameplays and also go over this online deck profile for it, the best version I could actually build for myself, or the version I'm most comfortable with. Now through prior testing, I did actually discover that this particular deck doesn't actually go too much into extensive combos. You'd think they would, but it doesn't actually pull off as well as you might think. This deck would prefer to go second, as I would have found out, but what I find is that even then you wouldn't really be going into too many things. The idea is to go for your so-called unique Dark Synchro summoning and just bring out one of your monsters. Now for this particular deck, you'll either go for your Septentrion or your Grand Chariot. I kind of prefer the Septentrion simply because it is just a bit more powerful, but the idea is on your following turn you would essentially just go into your Septentrion, attack over your opponent's monsters or attack them directly, and then you could pretty much just sit there. Now the great thing is that all of these Ursarctic main deck monsters have a similar effect. They all have this quick effect that allows them to special summon themselves out onto the field really easily, which is definitely fantastic, of course, by tributing a level 7 or higher monster you already have in the hand. You essentially sit there with the one monster, and then on your following turn you might be able to follow up with a bit of more variety here by being able to go into your Ultimate Zolkin to potentially bring out your Crystal Wing, or maybe even go for your all of your other cards like your Virtual World Shen. That would be fantastic as well. I oddly find that this particular deck definitely doesn't go into your Hauki Fibrax and Cross Shape enough. I surprisingly go into the Synchro Summons, and that's all you really need to go for. In fact, you don't need to really go for the links at all. Reason why is because you're not really restricted with the Synchro monsters as you are with Link monsters. With Synchro monsters you could summon out as many as you want, so because of that these Link monsters technically don't even have to be used in this deck. So with that being said, it does sometimes help out to include a Hauki Fibrax or Cross Shape to help extend certain plays. However, as for the main deck monsters, you have a good variety of them. You have 6 particular types. So you have the Mega Polar and Mic Polar, you have here the Mega Billis and Mic Billis, and then you have here the Mega Tannis and Mic Tannis. Now based off all of their so-called unique individual effects, they all obviously have the common effect to summon themselves out by tributing a level 7 or higher monster, which also doesn't have to be restricted to just Ursarctic monsters. So the Kaijus, the Gizmek Orochi, the Pancratops are all viable options as level 7 or higher monsters to help summon out your Ursarctic monsters, which is nice. But for each individual effect, depending on what they are like or what they might suit in terms of the particular format or community you play against, you're going to be adjusting the ratios based on what you like. So in my particular deck, we're going to be playing here 3 copies of Mega Polar, because you could essentially just target one spell trap your opponent controls and pop it, and it's your only form of popping an opponent's spell and trap. Because of that, playing 3 copies of this is definitely fantastic. Moving on, we are playing here the Mega Billis, which is also a very nice card because you could essentially target one card in your opponent's graveyard and banish it. Now all of these unique effects are triggered when they are special summoned out, so definitely very nice, because as quick effects you could also respond really quickly as well in response to your opponent's particular plays, making you have technically a deck of hand traps. Now as for Mega Tannis, I'm only playing 2 copies, and the reason why is because it's not as great. It's essentially just a Book of Moon when it's special summoned. As for Mic Billis, we're playing 3 again because you could essentially special summon an Ursarctic monster from your hand. And as for Mic Polar, we're playing 3 copies as well, because as soon as it's summoned out, you could add 1 Ursarctic from your deck to your hand, which is very powerful. And finally with Mic Tannis, we're only playing 2 copies because you could essentially just return one of your Ursarctic monsters from your graveyard to your hand, which is not particularly the most necessary out there. So because of that, the Tannis Ursarctic cards are the 2 monsters that I've chosen to play only 2 copies of. However, if it suits you in a different kind of way, if it suits your preferences in a different kind of way, then feel free to change it around. No one's stopping you there. I think you can't really go too wrong with the actual ratios of the main deck monsters. We are playing here a Kaiju engine, so we're playing the 2 Gamma Seals because they are weak, and we're playing here a Dogoran and also a Thunder King as well, which are both just big beat sticks for the deck, so definitely very nice there. The reason why I didn't want to play Jizukuru is because it was Machine Monster and I didn't want it to be vulnerable to a Cyber Dragon, so that would be quite devastating there. So because of that, I've chosen to play anything that's not machines. With that being said, we're playing Gizmek Orochi as well, a fantastic card. You could get rid of your Gizmek Orochi using your Ursarctic monster's effects, and then your Orochi could actually just special summon itself from the graveyard anyway by banishing the top 8 cards of your deck face down. Big cost, which is why I'm only playing one, and even if it gets banished, who cares, because it's going to be costly anyway. So because of that, just one copy is enough. Even if it gets sent to the graveyard, you could bring it out the following turn, which is what makes it so amazing. The Pancratops is kind of a self-explanatory. It's just a really big monster and it does a lot, and it's limited to 1, so it just happens to fit in this deck as a main deck monster. We're playing 3 Ash just because we need to disrupt our opponents as much as possible to allow our plays to go smoothly. And as for spells now, we're moving on here to Ursarctic Departure. Departure, you are playing 3 copies of this because you discard any card and add any 2 Ursarctic monsters from your deck to your hand. That's really all you need to know. It's such a powerful effect and it just generates so much resources, allowing you to pull off a lot of great plays. We're also playing here 3 copies of Slider. Ursarctic Slider is essentially a monster reborn. Enough said. And then we're playing 2 Big Dipper here. Big Dipper can easily be brought out via your Polari, our level 1 Synchro monster. So this is definitely just all we need as 2 copies of. For a bit of other support, we're playing here 2 copies of Trade-In, we're playing here Called by the Grave, Reasoning, and also 1 copy of the Kaiju Slumber. All very nice cards. And as for trap cards, we're playing here 2 of the Quint Charge. You could adjust the ratios just a bit however you want. You could take out 1 copy of this, add in Monster Reborn instead, or whatever suits you best anyway. But this deck, what I like about it is how flexible it is. You could play a lot of different cards in here. There are so many different builds. There is a build that focuses on the Gen X engine. There's a build that focuses on the Mermail engine. And the thing is this, you're tributing the monsters. So if you play the Mermails in this particular deck, or the Atlanteans at least, you could really pull off some amazing combos, some amazing disruptions out there. So this deck could technically be stronger. I just don't like it with those other cards in there, like the Atlanteans. It just takes away from the deck. You could also play the Deep Seas as well, like the Deep Sea Diva, I guess the now archetype of it. That's also a possibility, but I didn't want to splash too much of it into this deck. I wanted to keep it as pure as possible while being able to play a few generic cards in there. So with that being said, this is my particular preference for a build, but you guys could easily adjust it to whatever you like. As for the extra deck, we're playing here 2 copies of Septentrion and 1 copy of Grand Chariot. Some people might adjust the ratios the other way around, but that's up to you. As for Ursarctic Polari, you definitely have to play 3. It's the starter of all your combos and you want to be going into it every single turn. It's such a good card and it's such a necessary card too. Moving on, we're playing here the Zolkin, we're playing here the Adamantipator Rise and Drag Guides, we're playing here the Shen, we're playing the Geomathmech Magma, we're playing here Omega, Crystal Wing, Moonlight Dragon, we're playing here Cross Sheep, and the Halki Fibrax. All are just great utility cards for the deck itself. This is definitely a very interesting deck for the particular things it could actually go for. Theoretically, it could be really amazing, and depending on different builds, of course, you could do a lot of things, you could accomplish a lot. But at the same time, I did find it a bit underwhelming when playing the actual deck itself, because when I was actually going into testing it, I did find that the deck was quite vulnerable to a lot of disruptions out there. A lot of hand traps could easily just deal with this deck. Because of that, I didn't like it at all. and even then we would go into this such an extensive combo, and you're just going to your one card onto the field, the one monster. So the lack of OTK potential is definitely a bit of a disappointment for me as well. You might be better off playing the Atlantean engine into this deck, but like I said, I didn't like that particular build. It's just not my thing. But with that being said, this was essentially the whole deck profile itself. I will be showing a few games after this, so stay tuned to that. But if you guys enjoyed this video, definitely drop a like, share, comment and subscribe, and hit that bell notification as well. And definitely let me know if you want to see this kind of style of video again in the future for different archetypes. But with that being said, I hope you all have a wonderful day. I'll see you all next time.